So the hearing scheduled for today is a competency review. This was set because the court had hoped that there would be a report by today, probably recommended by counsel as a pretty hopeful date, but unfortunately it appears that there is no report on file.
That's correct. I did reach out to Western State Hospital. They indicated that they did receive the order on the 25th of October, and that they were estimating it would be 5 to 6 months before they would be able to assign an evaluator, because they handle out custody evaluations on a first-come, first-served basis. So that's the only information that I have for the court.
So you don't have an anticipated date at this time?
Correct, other than an estimate of 5 to 6 months from October 25th.
So,
Your Honor, Ms. Stone has indicated to me that she did not hear anything from Western State as to what the timeline is, but the 5 to 6 months does sound, based on my experience without custody matters, it does sound, that is the norm. But I guess my other question I have is, and I apologize, I'm not familiar with the 6 co-defendants. I don't know if Mr. Dang is present.
The individual, I believe, is my client, is present. He's seated in the second row there, on the right-hand side of the courtroom, or left-hand side of the courtroom, as we're facing.
So, Ms. Zoe, anything else?
Not from the state with regards to the issue of when Western State Hospital could possibly have an evaluation done.
Do you have another issue to raise?
Well, I guess procedurally, I didn't know if the court was going to address this at the end of all 6 co-defendants, since the other 5 are tracking Mr. Dang's case, whether the court is wanting to set another review hearing.
I would definitely want to set another review hearing, and I'll ask counsel's input as to that next hearing. I don't think the court has any choice today in this matter other than to simply set another review hearing. Frankly, I would take action if the parties believe that it would be successful in moving this case forward. I have not heard of any proposals yet in multiple other cases where we're facing the same problem that would lead Western State Hospital to do these evaluations any sooner. If the parties have any suggestions, I'm certainly open to suggestions. But it appears to me that my only option at this point is to set another review hearing. But again, I'm open to other suggestions. Mr. Taylor?
I don't have any other suggestions at this moment in time.
Neither does the state.
And so do the parties have a proposal as to the next competency review hearing, date at which we would hope that the report would be entered? I'm guessing it would be essentially 5 months from that October date.
Yes, Your Honor. I think, well, 5 months from the October date would be.
It would be March, as of
End of
March.
March.
Yeah. So I don't know if the court wants to set out that far. I'm okay with that. Maybe want to set a sooner date to hope that the timetable speeds up. That's, I guess I defer to the court as to how soon the court wants to hear.
So like in every case where it's in this situation, I would like to set a realistic date with the expectation that if things improve and Western State Hospital increases their ability to conduct these calendars or conduct these evaluations, that council will note up a hearing as soon as a report is received.
Your Honor, I'm looking at the calendar, I guess, in a nutshell, 5 months exactly from October 25th would more or less be March 25th, which is a Monday. I didn't, well, I guess it doesn't matter which day it is, it will be special set from Your Honor, but the only other thing I would note is that we currently have the trial confirmation for March 28th.
All of the other cases.
And since they're tracking with Mr. Dane's case, I didn't know if court just simply wanted to set a review hearing today, or with the other co-defendants, based on Mr. Dane's case, whether the parties or whether the court is wanting to readdress the trial day since.
Again, I'm just addressing this case.
Yes, Your Honor.
So what would you like to do in this case? What's the state's position?
Your Honor, I would just ask to set another competency review hearing for sometime the end of March.
Oh, yeah, I don't care.
I don't care.
And is your client in agreement with that?
I don't know, Your Honor. I will ask him.
Very good, thank you.
I'm trying to set another hearing because the report didn't happen. So, I told him a doctor doesn't evaluation and produces a report. So it sounds like the evaluation hasn't occurred yet. We're setting a date to see if they're going to have the report by that date. Because we're using 5 to 7 months for them to get the evaluations done. So we ask all the questions you want. No, the criminal justice system is very complicated.
So, Your Honor, I wanted to reiterate that the objection to the court's order last hearing regarding competency in general, but does not have an issue with the late March date for the next.
I'm just here to.
Thank you. So I think what I would like to do, in order to treat each case separately at this point, this case does not currently have a trial date. It would be inappropriate to have a trial date because of its status. I would like to set the next competency review hearing at 8:30 on Thursday, March 28th. And since basically all of the dates in these cases have to be special set anyway, that makes sense to me. Any objection to that?
No, Your Honor.
I should ask him, who might be involved? He's here to be a witness. Yeah.
Are you guys all part of this organization? Are you guys all part of this organization? I don't know. I'm asking. I don't know.
It just depends on how she acts. I know this is supposed to be a felony case, but we're in a civil court right now. She's not in a position of a felony.
The next matter I will call is the case of State versus Michael Hume, cause number 18-1-442-34. Yes.
He's right here.
And we'll start with that case as soon as I receive that order on the property case.
No. I read papers. I read it.
Your Honor, Mr. Taylor showed me the order. I just want the record to reflect that Mr. Dane refuses to sign above the defendant's line, but I just want to make the record that he is present in court and has to give a notice of the next court date.
And Trung Dang is present in court. I don't know exactly what the meaning is behind this additional language. It's not the court's order. The court's order is contained above the court's signature. Typically, when I see some additional language, I do cross it out because it's the first order. I don't see any need to do that in this case. It's not particularly problematic to me, but also not meaningful. Thank you. Ms. Kawada, you represent Michael Hume?
That's accurate, yes.
And is, Ms. Zoe, do you represent the state in this case?
Yes, Your Honor.
Very well. And this case is set this morning as a check-in because we have trial scheduled, in this case, on April 15th. I don't know what the status is of this case, independent of the hearing we just had, but I'd like to hear from the parties regarding the status of the case and then any impact on the hearing we just had. I guess I'll start with Ms. Zoe.
Your Honor, I guess the status of the case, and looking through our file, the witness list has been filed. I think from the state's perspective, we're just waiting for, the state's ready to proceed to trial based on the current April date. All I have is that.
Ms. Kalaka.
Your Honor, the present dates, I think are still good dates. I've been working on Ms. Stone regarding discovery issues. She's been very cooperative, and hopefully we can work them all out. Should that position change, I will raise issues with court and ask to address it more formally.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that the case is on track for trial and that the parties are working toward that date. So I, at this point, see no need to change any dates. I recognize that the hearing that the court just had sets a hearing at the same time as trial confirmation here and may pose a problem. Do the parties have any motions with regard to a response to that prior hearing and anything we need to do in this case?
Not from the state's perspective.
It's pretty funny.
I guess my preference would be, Your Honor, that should we believe the report isn't going to be forthcoming at that time, but ideally before then, if it is the intention of the state to still proceed with all of the defendants together. If they are willing to separate the defendants and try them separately, then by all means we can maintain the dates as far as Mr. Flynn's case is.
Or separate one?
Yes.
I don't have any motions before me to do that. The court will obviously consider any motions, but it would be my strong preference to move forward with the current trial date if that's possible, in order to resolve these cases all, or as many of them as possible, for the benefit of the community and for the parties involved in these cases. And so, at this point, it appears that there are no requests for the court to take any action. Is there anything that the court can do to assist the parties in moving this case forward toward resolution?
Not from the defense, Your Honor.
Not from the state.
Very well. The next required hearing in this case is trial confirmation that is set for March 28th at 8:30 a.m. And I believe that the parties are familiar with the method that can be used to get motions heard before this court. I'm happy to set those if the parties have a request of the court, but it is my expectation at this point that the case moves forward with that date. And again, if the parties need a hearing with regard to a proposed resolution or anything else, the parties are aware of the method for doing it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Next, the court will call the case of the State versus David Lee. That is cause number 18-1-443-3. Ms. So you represent the state?
Yes, Your Honor.
I'm saying that we don't think that report's going to be ready, and maybe he's not going to trial them.
Good morning. So I will ask the parties the same question I asked in the prior case, which is the status of this case, whether it is on track. It is currently set for trial on April 15th. And so if there's anything that a status that needs to be brought to the court's attention, or anything that the court can do to assist this case in moving a court resolution, I'll ask the parties to report that to me. Ms. Dell. Mr. Smith.
I've been listening to the proceedings thus far, and the court inquires whether there is anything the court I will say we have a trial date of April 15th. Of course, the parties that have motions at this time. If necessary to bring a motion, and I will do so. But right now, I have.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that report. So it appears that this case is on course, as Mr. Smith indicates, for a trial on April 15th, notwithstanding the hearing that the court held earlier on a related case. So it is my expectation that we stay on course, and if the parties have any requests of the court or motions, that they utilize the procedure for getting that set before this court. I'm happy to do that in order to assist the parties in the court resolution. And so the next set hearing in this case is trial confirmation on March 28th. And again, if the parties request any other hearings, you know the procedure for doing that. Thank you for being here today. Very much appreciated. And the next case is the case of State versus Ken Liu, cause number 18-1-444-34.
Good morning, Your Honor. Christopher Swayze on behalf of the person designated as the defendant in this case.
So you represent the state?
I do, Your Honor.
And so the court has set this hearing essentially as a check-in, case management hearing to determine the status of this case, and I'll hear reports from counsel as to what the status of the case is, whether it's on track for trial on April 15th as is currently scheduled, or whether the court can assist in any way in moving it toward resolution. Ms.
Your Honor, with regards to the current trial date, the state is, there's no issues from the state's perspective with being ready to try the case by the current trial date. And I don't think there's anything the court can do with regards to facilitating the parties in reaching a resolution. I know that Ms. Stone has been in extensive negotiation with all six attorneys, all six of the co-defendants cases. There is a separate issue that the state they want to address, so I'm going to the court's attention.
Okay, you want to wait till I hear from Mr. Swayze?
Yes, Your Honor.
Very well, Mr. Swayze.
I make a similar representation as these other attorneys, Your Honor. I expect them to create a trial date and give their motions to file. I will file them in a timely manner and mail them up to the court. I appreciate the court's willingness and its interest in helping us resolve the case short of trial. I think that's going to happen. Should the co-defendant not have been found competent by March 28th? I'm hoping we have heard before then about the completion of an evaluation. I'll file a motion to settle. I don't want my trial being held up. No disrespect to the other defendant. I don't want my trial held up because of that person's competency issues. And I'll do that in a timely fashion. I don't have any other representations.
Thank you. Ms. Zoe?
Your Honor, with regards to the other issue, it was brought to the state's attention by Pretrial Services just yesterday afternoon that there was a violation report filed by Pretrial Services on Mr. Liu's case. I didn't know if the court was aware. I do have a copy of the violation report. I showed it to Mr. Swaby. I think he might have taken it with him. But my understanding is that violation is in essence that Mr. Liu has not been reporting to Pretrial Services.
So I will say that I reviewed this file before this hearing, and again, essentially just before I came on the bench. I'm looking at the file now, which is an electronic file. It's not there, so I'm not aware of that report. My thought is, if it is as Ms. Zoe represents, which I have no reason to think it isn't, to simply require that Ken Liu report to Pretrial Services immediately after this hearing and get back on track. But I'll hear from the parties before I decide what to do. Mr. Swaby?
Is the state I inquire of the state through the court, is the state asking for a sanction? My client is always here for his hearings, he's always on time, he hasn't left the jurisdiction. I'm not exactly sure why he's having to check in, but I know that would be a motion on the criminal miscellaneous pretrial calendar.
Well, it
So
will
for
be
now-
special set before me.
So yes, Your Honor. So we'll go and we'll check in on our way out.
Ms. Zoe?
Your Honor, in speaking with Ms. Stone, my understanding is that she didn't know if the court was wanting to address the matter today, but she was planning on filing a motion to revoke release conditions based on the consistency of Mr. Liu's unwillingness to report to Pretrial Services.
So the court is not addressing that motion today. It's not before the court. The court has not seen the report of Pretrial Services. And I guess all I want to say is, having not seen the report, but knowing that Ken Liu is under the court's prior order to check in with Pretrial Services, I strongly encourage that Mr. Swaby talk to his client about checking in with pretrial while he's here at the courthouse.
Certainly, Your Honor.
And Ms. Zoe, I'm sure you and Ms. Stone are very familiar with the way to get a hearing set before this court. As indicated by Mr. Swaby, the court is more than willing to set those hearings. I think eager is an appropriate word there, to set any hearings necessary in order to move these cases toward resolution. So,
That's all from the claims on this matter, Your Honor.
very well. I think we are completed then for today. The trial date remains April 15th. I anticipate that the parties continue to act consistent with that trial date and be prepared. Again, I remain available to set any hearings that the parties request, utilizing the procedure that the court has indicated previously for this trial. And the next hearing in this case is that trial confirmation hearing on March 28th at 8:30.
Thank you.
No, it wasn't actually formal.
The next matter is the case of State versus Matthew Tran, cause number 18-1-447-34. Is Ms. Seco here or anyone on her behalf?
Your Honor, my understanding, the last I heard is before our hearing started was, I believe Ms. Sego's was in a trial with Ms. Millar, and around approximately 8:30 a.m. there was a jury question. So I do not know if they're still dealing with the jury question or.
Okay. I will call that matter after I call the next matter. So the next matter is the case of State versus Trang Mai Lee, cause number 18-1-545-34. And is Mr. Simpson here or anyone on his behalf? Ms. Zoe, do you have any information on Mr. Simpson?
I do not, Your Honor, I have not heard from him. I advised Ms. Stone, who's in the sentencing right now for the Judge Skinder, that I did not see Mr. Simpson here. I have not received a response from her on whether she had any information.
I would have expected Mr. Simpson to be here today, and I'm surprised to not see him here. You don't have any information on whether he's in another courtroom or anything like that?
I don't, and I did receive an email from Ms. Stone indicating that she does not know. She's not sure as to why he's not here today.
So what I am going to do, Ms. Zoe, is just take a brief recess and see if, I very much appreciate the activity in the courtroom. It appears that other defense attorneys are trying to determine whether Ms. Segal will be here and what time, perhaps doing the same thing on Mr. Simpson. So I'm hoping that after a few minutes, we can go back on the record with someone either here representing Matthew Tran and Trang Mai Lee, or some sort of report. So that's my expectation. I'm hoping that after a few minutes, council will be able to give a report. Thank you. Please rise. And we are back on the record, first to address the case of State v. Matthew Tran, cause number 18-1-447-34. And Ms. Segal, you represent Matthew Tran?
Yes, I do.
And Ms. Stone, are you here for the state?
I am, Your Honor. Thank you.
And so as,
I don't need to be up there.
so as we've done throughout the hearings that we've had this morning on other related cases, I'd like to get a status update from the parties. We are set for trial on April 15th, and the attorneys before me haven't been here throughout the hearings on the other cases, so I'll just tell you I heard from the attorneys on all of the other cases. They indicate that they are moving forward on track, on course, as one attorney put it, for the trial set for April 15th. Notwithstanding the fact that one of these related cases remains in 1077 status, and therefore the court has set a competency review. The other cases are remaining on track, and the parties didn't have any requests for the court regarding other hearings. But this case is set for trial on April 15th. It's set for trial confirmation. I know of no other pending motions or matters in this case, but I'm happy to accommodate any requests to set such matters if that comes up. So I'd like just a status report from the parties. Ms. Stone.
Ms. Honor, Ms. Segal obviously is present. She has requested some discovery in a different format and been sent, but I believe that she has all of the discovery. She is going through that. I've provided her a screenshot of everything the state has, and she's checking that. We've just recently provided her a thumb drive. It's my understanding that some of the links that she received before she didn't download, they have essentially an expiration date. You have to download them within 10 days, and it sounds like that did not happen, so we've given her now a thumb drive of discovery. I think there was a question from Ms. Segal about CDs, where she indicated she had 2 CDs, and we clearly indicated that there were essentially 19 surveillance CDs, and so we were waiting on information from her about whether...
I'm sorry to interrupt.
I'm sorry.
I can't imagine the court needs this level of detail.
Yes, Your Honor. So for the court's purposes, we've been working with Ms. Segal to ensure that she has everything that she didn't believe she had or had not downloaded. I just want to be clear, the state has previously provided it, but somewhere in that process, it sounds like Ms. Segal went away somewhere else. So that's the only outstanding issue that we've had as it relates to Mr. Tran's case with counsel, and we worked through that and are working through that. with counsel. So I think that's the only thing.
So there are no issues then?
I don't believe there are any outstanding issues with Ms. Tran, or Mr. Tran's case. I think that the state would like to have a management conference sooner than March 28th, obviously, but I want to make sure that my brief in terms of the argument that has been presented consistently throughout this course by the defendants as it relates to their essential constitutional status, and that they are not the person named.
Sorry to interrupt again. This was really just a report on the status of the case. So I don't want to get into issues. The court is not going to address specific issues today. There is no motion before the court, so I'm not intending to hear argument. So can I just say, state's on track?
The state is on track, Your Honor. I will be filing a motion.
Thank you, Ms. Seago.
I'm just sorry, restricted Steve Thunder, I believe I have every, I do have concerns with my client and whether or not we have adequate communication to go forward. I will have a motion with the court if I believe that that is not the case, but otherwise, April 15th is an acceptable date for trial, barring any other issues that I would present to the court if necessary. I've met with Mr. Tran just a few weeks ago, and as we're in court here today, there are communication issues that I have strong concerns about. And the court's already ruled on Mr. Tran's request for new counsel, and I've already provided information to the court, so we may be rehashing the same thing, but as his attorney, I have to be able to communicate effectively with him, and I have to believe that he understands what I'm saying to him and what he is saying to me, and I'm not sure that's the case currently. But again, it's not before the court today. I will be happy to file something within the next few weeks if that is, I believe that is generally going to be an issue and a bar for me being able to represent him at trial. But as far as everything else, things are on track, and I would prefer we was done if we need a management significantly earlier than, a few weeks before the April 15th with all of the moving parts here. And I would acknowledge an offer has been tendered.
Thank you. So I'm going to address a couple of things. First, it is always the court's expectation when a hearing is set that attorneys appear at those hearings on time. If an attorney representing a party has a conflict, arrangements need to be made so that someone is here representing both the state and every defendant in every case. I did not hear an explanation or an apology today, and I'm not issuing sanctions today, but I will in the future if the court is convinced that there's a willful non-appearance. I'm concerned about that today, and it is my expectation that arrangements always be made. I've tried to be very careful today throughout the hearings that were held today, as I do in, or I try to do in all cases, that information that the court receives is on the record. Throughout the break, Ms. Zoe, I'm sure in an attempt to be helpful, provided information to the clerk regarding Ms. Seago's whereabouts, etc. I indicated to the clerk that I did not want that information. It should only be on the record. So I just want to make that clear that it's always my expectation that people be here on time, parties and attorneys. And when that doesn't occur, and I believe that it's willful, the court will issue sanctions.
Judge, if I could just briefly respond. I have a jury out in Judge Dixon's courtroom, and we had a special call-in this morning that I didn't have any notice of, that there was a potential problem with the jury. So I had really no anticipation that I would not be able to be here. There literally wasn't any time to get anyone to cover here. We had asked the jury to return at 9 o'clock, and prior to 9 o'clock, there was a phone call regarding issues that needed to be addressed on the record, and the judge put a number of things on the record, and I couldn't not be there for that and express my opinion as to how I thought the judge should go forward here, and I don't genuinely know how I necessarily did. I couldn't have gotten it done here in the period of time that I had noticed I had to appear in front of Judge Dixon. We were just supposed to return here and wait for the jury to begin again at 9 o'clock.
Ms. Segal, is it your representation to this court that you were on the record in another courtroom at 8:30 this morning?
No, I was contacted by Judge Dixon's JA.
So you were available at 8:30, you just weren't here?
I was not here at 8:30, Judge, and I honestly was unaware that we were doing this today. I checked the court calendars actually yesterday, so I was not willfully not here, I was mistakenly not here.
So this is not the first time in this case that you were not aware of a court order that set a hearing in this case. So all I can say, Ms. Segal, is that I strongly recommend that you review every court order in every case that you represent a defendant in, and be very familiar with every hearing, especially when set by court order, as this one was. The court at this time is not setting another trial management hearing. I don't believe it's necessary. I strongly urge the parties, if they have an issue for the court to address, to follow the procedure that the court has laid out for special setting hearings in this case before the court. As I indicated to other attorneys in these related cases, I am eager to address matters that come up on these cases when brought to my attention appropriately, utilizing the procedure that the court has identified. So please do that. Do not wait. Do not wait for a hearing that the court has scheduled. I will be extremely disappointed if the parties do nothing and come to the trial confirmation hearing currently scheduled for March 28th and indicate that there are longstanding issues, some of which you've mentioned today, and the parties have not taken any action. So I am aware that there are many moving parts with regard to this case that the court is not aware of, and that there's a lot of work outside of the courtroom, including potential resolution, including discovery issues. I appreciate all of that work. I don't need to be aware of all of that work, but when the court can be of assistance to the parties in setting a hearing in order to address a potential resolution or any disagreements that the parties have that the court can resolve to move the case along, I'm eager to do that. So I'm not setting another hearing at this time. I will if I receive appropriate documentation by the parties or a party. The next scheduled hearing is trial confirmation, which is scheduled for March 28th at 8:30. That is a required appearance by the parties and the attorneys. The trial is scheduled for April 15th, and if the parties are aware of anything prior to the trial confirmation hearing that the attorney believes impacts the trial date, please feel free to follow the procedure to have a motion noted before the court.
Yes, Your Honor, will do. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Finally, we have the case of State v. Trang Mai Lee, cause number 18-1-545-34. Mr. Smith, are you standing in for Mr. Simpson?
I am, Your Honor. And I will let the court know that I was downstairs. I did not know anything about this. Mr. Simpson did not arrange it in advance. And I knew that, I became aware that there was a situation that needed a conflict of counsel to step in. I was the only one available at the time, so I'm here for Ms. Lee in that capacity so that this hearing could go. I want to make sure that the court's aware that, to my knowledge, Mr. Simpson, I don't know why he's not here. I I will represent that I talked with Ms. Lee. She is indicating that she is ready to go to trial on April 15th, and I am now giving the court the sum total of my knowledge and ability today.
And Ms. Stone, you represent the state.
That's correct, Your Honor, and for the court's purposes, Mr. Smith happened to be in the courtroom that I was downstairs doing a sentencing, and I drafted him essentially to ask him to come stand in since I had received that Mr. Simpson wasn't present and that the matter was essentially just sitting up here waiting to be heard, and Mr. Smith was kind enough to do that.
Have you attempted to get a hold of Mr. Simpson?
This morning, no, Your Honor, I've been in the sentencing since 8:30, and I literally came upstairs after finding Mr. Smith and letting the court know immediately that he was present, and then finding Ms. Seago.
Perhaps Ms. Zoe has some information.
Ms. Zoe has indicated that she emailed Mr. Simpson, and she has not received a response from him.
Thank you. I very much appreciate that. I would have expected that, so I appreciate that. There were attempts to reach Mr. Simpson. Of course, we don't know why he isn't here. I'm hoping that when he's here next that he has an explanation. As the parties who are present know, it is always the court's expectation that attorneys be present at all hearings or make arrangements for another attorney to be there on their behalf so that their clients can be represented. Mr. Smith, I very much appreciate your standing in today and your talking with Trang Mai Lee in order to provide the court with some information. I am hopeful that you can at least attempt to communicate with Mr. Simpson as to what occurs today. And again, I appreciate you being here.
Thanks.
So this case is scheduled for trial on April 15th and trial confirmation on March 28th. I appreciate the report of Mr. Smith that he's already given indicating that the case is on track and ready for trial on that date, notwithstanding other issues that have arisen regarding related cases this morning. Ms. Stone, do you have anything further to report?
I do not, Your Honor, I have nothing additional.
I don't think so. Just direct record should reflect that Ms. Lee is here, present in court in the back alley.
Thank you. And so at this point, I think all we can do is just move forward with trial preparation, and if the parties have any issues that the court needs to address, please utilize the procedure set forth in order to get matters before this court, whether that be a request of the court or a potential resolution. I appreciate the hard work that's going on, and Mr. Smith, if you will convey that to Mr. Simpson, as well as the court's expectation that he be present at all hearings, I would appreciate that very much. The next required appearance scheduled in this case is March 28th at 8:30. And again, if there are any other issues that it would be helpful for the court to get involved in, please utilize the procedure to set the hearing.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
Understood, Your Honor.
Thank you. And we are completed for this month.
Please rise. Court is in recess.